Hey everyone, I'm here with Alex Williams, who is the VP for Gaming and Esports at Capitol Records. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Dr. Butler.
Of course, of course. So I just wanted to ask you a few questions, a little bit about what you do at Capitol Records and, what does esports and all of that, what does it entail?
Okay. So it's interesting because before I took the role, and it makes sense that you said Capitol Records because a lot of people say Capitol Records, but it's actually Capitol Music Group.
Oh, okay.
So it's comprised of multiple labels. That Capitol Records is one of them. Some of the more well-known ones are Astroworks, Blue Note, as well as Motown. So it's kind of cool that it encompasses more than just like the name Capitol Records. But people say it all the time, so I definitely get it. But back to your question as far as what I do and kind of what esports and gaming, how it connects to the music industry. Pretty much one thing I guess a lot of gamers, even myself didn't realize was how much music plays an integral part of the gaming experience. So if you think about games, the sonic experience is just as important as the visual experience and all the gameplay and mechanics. And a lot of times that goes more than just the sound of a player jumping and what it sounds like when his feet hits the ground. But it goes even further to the score.
Okay.
Just like if you think about a movie, what would a movie be without the, adrenaline pumping music when that car chase is happening? Video games similarly. Like, what would it be without that pound pumping music that kind of gives you that sense of like adventure and action when it's time to go for the win or for the big kill or whatnot? So that's a bit of kind of the narrative of how you start to see how music and gaming coexist. So my role is essentially to try to find opportunities for our artists who are interested in really letting gaming be more a part of who they are and not just kind of only being in the game as a song, but it being a part of that person. So I work with a lot of publishers, a lot of different brand partners to try to come up with strategic solutions to bring our artists closer to video game culture, while also making sure that the label itself has a good point of view and reputation in the industry as well.
Wow, there are just so many layers to that.
Yeah, it's a hard question to kind of narrow down into a succinct statement. So apologies in advance for being long-winded.
Yeah, no worries. So I feel when I talk to students about sports in general, especially in events or facility management, we're like, hey, you gotta like music and you also have to like sports as well, because if you're dealing in an event capacity or a sport facility capacity, all these different things are coming in there. But just with esports, how we call it a non-traditional sport in sport management, right? So esports, just from there, also to that music component. So very cool.
Definitely. I mean, esports is essentially organized competition where what I used to like to say, the ball is the game. But the unique thing about it, football is just football. Baseball is just one baseball. Basketball is just one basketball. But with esports, you have a myriad of balls. 2K could be a ball. League of Legends could be a ball because they all have different strategies and different ways that they approach it. So esports is really like a wider proposition than just a league proposition that's down one vertical, because there are separate leagues dedicated to certain games, and those are more relatable to a NFL or MLB. And the same things happen at non-traditional sports games as they do traditional. There's an opening ceremony, there's a halftime, there's energy pumping moments, throwing t-shirts, and the same way you see music at those things that we probably all grew up at is the same thing that's happening now with esports and figuring out how to create moments of fandom and where music kind of plays a role in that.
Okay. I love how passionate you are about this.
Yeah, it's just, I like discovering new things and finding fun ways to kind of like celebrate who I am as a person and what I love to do and have it be a part of my work. So it's my hobby and it's also my job, so it's cool.
That's a nice hobby and job to have.
Yeah.
So you're talking about traditional, non-traditional sports plus music. Again, a lot of layers and a lot of different configurations. Can you give me an example of, I'm just going to throw it out there, an athlete that maybe is on an esports team and then an artist and their music and how that looks?
So, an athlete on an esports team is interesting, and I won't go down a rabbit hole, but I'll just kind of keep it at the surface. So, an athlete on an esports team, you know, their archetype in terms of their behaviors, training, what they do in terms of their routine before gameplay or before competition, it's very similar across the
Okay.
board. So the athlete itself, himself or herself, in an esports environment, music could be what they do to kind of get themselves psyched in. The same way, LeBron, might have that type of energy. He might have a favorite artist that, gives him the confidence to kind of move forward. But at the same time, an artist might have a favorite gamer that they
Okay.
root for. Because fundamentally, I think a lot of us, see our heroes through the lens of sports because they're superhuman. Like LeBron's big, he can jump.
Okay.
Noah Lyles can run fast. All these different things. Like, wow, I can't do that. So even at a human level, a traditional sports athlete who also games, they're amazed at the level of skill that some of these professional gamers have in something that they can't do.
Okay.
So LeBron's like, wow, how are you able to move so quickly through that maze or speed run through that course like that? It's insane. So you get that sense of like shared awe, that happens. So the relationship dynamic is not as foreign as you think, but the artist's approach when it comes to the music and gaming, sometimes they're just fans too.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, but it all plays together.
Yeah. Do you have to sell the artist in terms of esports and putting their music in a video game? Or is it the opposite where there are people lining up like, hey, I want my music in this game, or can you design a video game around something like that?
It can work in a number of different ways.
Okay.
The thing about gamers and the thing about individuals that make games, ultimately sometimes we're all targeting the same pool of people.
Uh-huh.
We all know gaming is the number one team passion point. Music is right there neck and neck. So it's safe to say whatever music is like charting and that's the sound of the day, that's probably what they're going to want in that
Okay.
game too,
Okay.
because it kind of correlates well. But you also have to look at it as a form of art. So let's say Valorant. Valorant is a very unique game, and they've decided as a brand they're going to have a very unique point of view when it comes to music. They're not going to look for these big above the line artists, but they're going to go more emerging and start to kind of use their platform as a way to break people. That's a strategic approach that Valorant decided to do, whereas maybe another blue chip game like a 2K, they want the bangers, they want the chart toppers, they want the Quavos, they want the Kodak Blacks, they want all the hits. So the person inside of that company may be more inclined to say, you know what, tell me what's the top hits that you got, send them through, and I'll decide which ones I want to match to my game. It's our job to upsell, to figure out what is the way that we can kind of like get deeper than just a song. But everyone in the kind of like in the mix are all motivated by different things. So we just have to do our part to kind of like, give respect to whatever it is end product they want to create.
Okay.
And make sure our artists can support that vision.
Okay, very nice.
Yeah.
So, okay, can you walk me through maybe a project that you did, or, I mean, I know there's so much to it, but just kind of a streamlined version of a project you did, or maybe an average week, what it looks like. Though I don't think you ever have like an average week, right?
Yeah, well, I'll do an easy one.
Okay.
So Fortnite is an extremely popular game. And I think this gives a good example. So Fortnite, cultural beast, doing a lot of different things. There's music integration. There's Fortnite radio inside of the cars driving around. There are emotes. There are all these skins, all these different things that how the culture shows up. So, one thing that I noticed was that a lot of times Fortnite would highlight different moments on the calendar, like Halloween, Valentine's Day, and they'll do some cute, fun thing to show up. So I thought it'd be fun because Black History Month was coming up,
Okay.
if I could convince them to work with one of our artists to provide, I guess, the pseudo kind of disc jockey voice for the radio.
Okay.
So if Neilani's riding around in her car virtually, and it's like, hey, welcome to Fortnite Radio. We really want to thank you guys as we celebrate this. And it was something Fortnite hadn't done. And I felt like we had a perfect artist for it, who was Masego.
Oh, okay.
And his
Great
sound,
artist.
yes, his sound was perfect for the game. You know, very family friendly. You know, he loves musicology. It's not just about the hits; it's about the sonic arrangement. And we were able to kind of just ship it to them, say, hey, we think this could be cool. What do you think? Because at the end of the day, they have a job to do. They're not always calling us for what we need, or you know, we're kind of calling them like, hey, we're pitching. So they say, yeah, let's do it. You know, as a part of it, they picked a couple other artists and songs that were going to be in rotation, but our artist was able to provide the voice for that radio, so millions and millions of kids heard it, and you know, maybe they was like, oh man, this guy sounds cool. Who's this Masego kid? Boom, they go to check him out on Spotify, and it's a funnel. So that's an easy way in to just kind of show how maybe what I do is a little bit different than just putting music in the game, because that process is called syncing, and there's a whole nother department to do that. We just work collaboratively to, you know, make it a little bit bigger proposition at the end of the day.
Okay, very nice. So that collaboration, it sounds like partnerships, right? And relationship building, it's a really big part of your job and managing that. So, you know, when I talk to the students, I talk about networking. That's my big thing. So just networking partnerships, how do you make those relationships? How do you keep them, and how do they evolve over time?
Well, you make them by, you know, being okay feeling uncomfortable, you know, being clear on what it is that you're looking for out of a particular relationship, and making sure that person understands that, you know, the value you bring or the curiosity that you're coming with. Because ultimately, we're all in a race to constantly evolve as our own individual selves. So it wouldn't be crazy for me to think that that person that I'm looking to connect with is also looking to connect with someone else.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that I can somehow either add value or, you know, show them that their time was spent well in meeting with me. So that's, you know, the initial connection. You know, I know my value proposition, what I come with. I present myself confidently, honestly, and I'm a human. I think being human is real. But really just kind of like being good with the follow through.
Okay.
Knowing when to invite someone out for coffee, wish them a happy birthday, or just say, hey, it's, you know, I know it's the busy season, man. I hope you're keeping your head up.
Okay.
You know, and those are some of the small ways, and that's just relationships across the board. It doesn't matter what industry, banking, finance, education. It's just about trying to connect with the person and not the professional.
Yeah. I feel like in your profession, you just have to know about so many things, about music, about gaming, and then also to just the corporate side of everything. So it's just so much to balance. So, and the way that you just talk about it and present it, somebody like me that doesn't really know a lot about music or esports, I'm getting a better feel for it.
I'm glad I'm coming through clear.
And I hope you guys are too. So I guess I want to ask you a question about esports on the international level and on that landscape. You know, future Olympics, all that. What does that look like for esports, and kind of what do you see?
So right now, and I may not be able to quote it exact, but I know the upcoming Olympics in 2024, I believe.
Paris.
2024 Paris will be the first time that gaming is a part of Olympic competition. And I know they did some preliminary stuff the last Winter Olympics, I believe. So I think it's a proving ground right now that's in response to an industry that is consuming a global point of view. And honestly, gaming is way bigger internationally than it is domestic.
Okay.
So it's only makes sense that that's the first stage of like true kind of sports validation by coming into the Olympic family. So I see it there in relation to kind of like what I'm witnessing as it's happening. But long term, you know, I'd be remiss to say that it'll probably be a number of titles that operate the same way that there are a number of winter sports
Okay.
or a number of track and field type competitions, because each one is very different. You know, a 100 runner is very different than the shot put. You know, it's almost its own game, but it's looped into a larger story. So I think that probably will be, if I had to kind of like, be king for a day and write the script, that gaming might look more like a track and field competition. That's a composite of multiple games,
Okay.
represented by multiple countries, coming together under one shield. And now you can tune in for whatever your interest is. And it's now a collective pool of interest.
Okay.
I don't know how many people would go to the javelin throw competition if it was separated from all the track and field.
Yeah.
So that would be my vision of what I would think. But I mean, it's much smarter people that make those decisions than me.
Stop.
So.
No, I love that analogy, and I have it now. I have a sociology question related to it.
Okay.
I feel that gaming, no matter what gender you may identify as, it's just one of those sports that anyone can play. So with that, it's just a kind of sport, gender neutral sport, where hey, you might have the javelin of eSports versus the 100-meter versus the 200-meter, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those sports that gender, strength, age, all those things, they get left aside.
Okay.
It's just about your gameplay. I mean, there may be some endurance things there, but ultimately, it's a crapshoot.
Okay.
It's whoever's the best can be the best.
Okay. Very nice. Very nice. So with that being said, where do you see the future with more women and girls participating in gaming, or do you see that?
I think there are a lot of female gamers out there. In my mind, I don't think it's as much a lack of female gamers as it is a lack of female gamers being highlighted more.
Okay.
So of course, once we see it, we now know that it exists. But I think it's a sign of the times. I think female sports as a total, talking point itself is something that is always going to be top of mind when it comes to kind of creating, the next big moment in sports. So, I mean, female competition, like I said, when it comes to eSports, there really is no gender reality. Like, eSports is just one composite of gaming. There are content creators, there are, IRL streamers, there are all these different, collegiate gamers. So it's just about continuing the representation of women showing up in all sports.
Okay.
And it's going to happen within gaming. I think it'll happen easier.
Okay.
Because there's less of a bridge between, let's say, what one gamer identifies versus another gamer, and how that correlates to their skill level and ability to execute.
Okay, very nice, very nice. So, with anyone that wants to be in a position like you, what kind of classes or what kind of skill set would they have to focus on? What do they need to take? Do they need to take a class on negotiation, or do they need to take a major in eSports? Because I know some programs are offering that. What does that look like?
I think it's a combination.
Okay.
I wouldn't look at eSports like it's, a foreign language. Esports is a business that exists in the sports world. There are a lot of facets of esports that speak to health and wellness, psychology, that speak to finance. I mean, someone has to fund this stuff. That speaks to production, event operations. All these different elements are already actively and readily available at most college campuses. It's just about your focused attention, or whatever your, whatever track you decide on. Like, if I'm going through a sports business program like yourself, if I choose my focus is esports, it's esports. It could be basketball. It could be international sports. So you start to realize that once you get in it and start doing the work, that it's a lot more transferable skills than you believe. It's just about how you sharpen it to a fine point to lean in.
Very nice, very nice. So any other advice or words of wisdom you have for anyone listening today?
I think for me, I mean, you have to continue with that age-old adage of be curious.
Okay.
Ultimately, I mean, it's on you to sell yourself to get in that position where you can prove that you can deliver impact. So fundamentally, whether it's esports or any other faction, if you're passionate about it and you want to understand more, go experience it. You know, go find a way where you can kind of show up and be helpful. You know, the biggest gift you have as a young person or a student is the wealth of time and the assumption of just being there to learn.
Okay.
You know, instead of being there to earn.
Oh.
So with that in mind, you get a lot more flies with that kind of honey. So, I mean, if you see it and you want to be a part of it, just walk up there and ask somebody how to do it. Yeah, so being quiet is definitely not the best approach.
I was reading an issue of Sport Business Journal, and one of the things that they said that they look for in a new hire was inherent curiosity.
Yeah.
So I think that's very on par with what you're saying. So.
Yeah, because who knows? I mean, a lot of stuff is unwritten.
Yeah.
So if all you can do is focus on what's written, then, you know, there's a point in time where you may not be able to be of value.
Okay.
So being curious keeps you fresh, keeps you sharp, and keeps you continuing to show how you deserve to be there.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
I hope you all learned something. I know I learned a lot today, and I have a lot more questions. So I may be, asking some questions from my perspective, and then anybody else out there. But thank you all.
Thank you, Dr.